Welcome to the Autumn Leaf Anyway Tray, Small Anyway Tray Insert Pattern. This is a sister or a cousin of some of our other trays that we've done with the same format, same color schemes basically. We've got herbs and butterflies. And with all of these we've done background papers, and with the background papers we've taken and glued paper down to get all the handwriting, and then we've done texture on top. With this one we did it a little bit differently. Instead of gluing the paper down, which is what this was, and I show you how to glue the paper down, but what I did here is I painted my background and then I did an image transfer to get those words back there. And what that did for me, this word over here is also an image transfer. So what that did is it makes it so I don't have to trace the pattern, I don't have to paint those words, and it means that my words go onto my paint, and that way it's a more cohesive set. It's a really fun technique. I hope that you enjoy it. We've also done a little bit of an interesting effect here. We've used textured glass for our veins, and that makes the paint not stick, which means it gives it a 3D effect. Okay, the very first thing we're going to do with our MDF surface is we're going to use the multi-purpose sealer to seal the surface. Now these surfaces are reversible, so you want to go ahead and seal all the surfaces so that you're already ready to paint the back side when you get there. You could use a roller, you can use your brush to make sure you're not dripping over your edges. You just can sweep towards your edge, and that will prevent things from bleeding over the edges of the surface. And I'm sweeping at kind of a little bit of an angle to get that long sweep right there. Okay, once you've got the medium on your board, you can set it up on these little dudes right here. And what's really cool, these are little painter's pyramids. This is like a kind of a non-sticky kind of fabric, plastic. You can actually put it wet side down and then continue on to this side, and even if you rub it around a little bit, it doesn't mar the surface. So excellent little device for having it elevated and giving you something to hold it, so it's almost like an extra pair of hands. Okay, I've got my sanding disc, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it a little whisk. Sanding disc comes with different grits on each side, so I'll use the roughest first and then the smoother one. Okay, wipe off any residual. And then we've got our new paper that has got a bunch of fall words on it. This is a collage paper. It's made out of archival stuff, so it'll last. And they are done with a laser printer. And so what that means for you, if you want to do a, what do you call it, an ink transfer, you could print it backwards, and then you could put your medium on, lay this in there, wait, soak it off, and then your words would transfer onto your piece. All right, we're going to do a couple of interesting things here. On the other projects, the herbs and the butterfly, what I did is I glued a paper just like this onto the board, and then with a decoupage medium, and then I painted and add texture on top, okay, and glazed and did all that stuff. This is my experimental board. With this one, what I did is I laid, notice that this is printed backwards, I put the paint and the texture on first and let it all dry, and then I put the decoupage medium over the top of it, and then you lay it on upside down and you allow it to dry, and then you rub off the paper and the ink stays on. That allows the background and the texture to show through. And yet and this is what's kind of a little bit hard to get your mind around. Wherever you see the whitest color, that's where there is not really any ink. So that's going to allow the most color to show through. The paper starts out white, and so printers don't print in white ink. They just reserve the white space that is the paper, the white part, to be that white area. So what you see here is this layered look of some ink over the top of my painted surface. And it gives it a really nice, I don't know, kind of mellow, rich look. It's just beautiful. So we're going to show you both techniques, and then you can decide which way you want to do it. Okay, the first technique that I'm going to do, and I've got a big messy piece of palette paper here. I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to show you how to just decoupage it on the paper onto your background. Okay, so that's just going to be a straight glue-on kind of effect. Okay, and we're going to take a large brush. I'm using a large oval glaze. Those are my favorite brushes for large areas because they don't leave straight marks. Okay, and we're going to apply nice, even, thick medium all over this board from edge to edge. You can go in different directions, that's fine. You want to kick out to the outside so that you can move it around. Nice even texture, but thick enough. Okay, I'm going to put this aside for a second. I'm not going to put it very far aside. And then I'm going to paint thin medium on my paper. I want to be careful not to get it on the front because it'll stick down to my surface. I don't want that. Okay, so we'll get that on there. Wah! This one's a little messier than the other. Well, I guess they both have their messiness factors. Okay, I think my paper is going to go right in the glue. And then I'm just going to kind of center it and get it lined up. And now is the time to move it. If you don't like where it's at, get it moved now. And then you'll go ahead and spray that down, get all the air bubbles out. You can pierce them later and put a little glue into it. Don't worry about there not being any paper down here. That doesn't matter because we're going to paint that area anyway. So I'll go ahead and get that all nice and firmly braid out. This paper's fairly thin, so then you're going to put one top coat on top of this as well. It dries clear. So one nice coat on top. And a couple bubbles are forming. Sometimes I think what happens is the paper stretches a little bit. So I can just play with it while it's wet. And I'll wash my hands when I'm done. And we'll allow this to dry. Now that my surface is dry, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to use the retractable detail knife, pull off the end. You want to be careful, this thing is sharp. I'm using a self-healing mat, and then I will just run the knife along there. This pressure point right here with your finger through there, and it's got like a little indent, is so much more comfortable than the old-fashioned X-Acto knives and stuff like that. Oops, got a piece still attached. And where are you? I can't see. Sometimes I get at the craziest angles. Okay, we'll trim up both sides. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it all back together like this. Oops, upside down. I'm going to go ahead and just use the back side of this board, and I'm going to show you how to make the really cool image transfer. I'm so stoked about the image transfer. So the very first thing that we'll do is we'll paint, and I'll get my nonstick mat out so I don't get paint all over it. Now I'm on my nonstick mat. Did I say well, whichever. That was the self-healing mat. This is the nonstick mat. Okay, we're going to add two colors. We've got antique white and bleached sand. Yep. Put them out on your palette. Okay, the very first thing that we want to do is we want to use a big oval glaze. Okay, and we want to coat it with 1 coat of the bleach sand. When you're doing your surface, you kick it off over that way, which we talked about earlier. And so we'll just put that whole thing on and allow it to dry. The reason that we go ahead and we put 1 coat of this color on first, notice these little lifting marks here. If I was slip slapping, I would be reversing, I would be making it show down to my base coat there. And then that gives me a really uneven, distorted base coat. So we let that dry, and then when I put the 2 colors on next, that won't happen. Alright, then we'll go ahead and we'll pick up, when we're doing a slip slap, we pick up this color and we start getting it moving on the piece, and then we'll pick up and we'll dirty brush slip slap into that color. And we'll make it be very irregular, but we don't want any of those weird things. Using the oval glaze like this allows the bristles leave the ground, and when you can't see it because it's wet, but they actually, see, these ones are shorter. It's an oval glaze and not just a filbert, which means that these bristles leave the ground sooner, which makes it so you don't end up with a really harsh stop and start mark on your piece. So I'll just get that on there. Who cares if the colors are a little blended? These 2 colors together make the color of our collage papers. They blend really well with it. Just kind of get a sloppy coat going there. The more casual you are about slip slapping, the better it turns out. So you don't want to be all tense and uptight about it. You know, just let your eyes squint at your piece. That is a really, really handy thing. I find myself doing it kind of naturally, but if you don't know to do it, then, you know, you might not think of it. So squint, and that will make you see things in a fuzzier way, which helps you see like where patterns are forming and stuff like that. So I'm just doing X's and tip taps and things like that with my brush. And I'll go back and forth between the 2. I don't want it to get too dark and I don't want it to be too light. Okay, now we'll let that dry, and in the meantime, what we'll do, and I'll probably just hit that with the blow dryer. In the meantime, we'll get out our texture crackle. Okay, and my texture crackle is looking really dried up. It's still workable, but I am getting down to the bottom of the jug. And so I'll just scoop it out, and you can see it looks very, very wrong. Okay, now one thing I want to caution you on, and I did this wrong or incorrectly the last time, I used way too much paint and I broke the crackle of my mixture. If you put too much, you can only do, I think it's like 50% paint. If you put too much paint in it, you'll break it. Now this material is thixotropic, meaning that it gets creamier when you work it. So don't worry that it's thick, just go ahead and work it. So see how that's getting nice and creamy like cake frosting. Raw. Okay, then we'll bring over, we'll make this one this color, so I'll just put a little bit of my paint in there, and maybe a little bit less. I definitely like the crackle look, so we'll mix 1 pile of each color. I'll hit my blow dryer, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with the crackle. Alright, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to scrape some of this crackle medium here and there, fairly thin. And don't worry about going in from one kind of color to the other. That this printing, see how the colors are very similar. The ink that's on there, all the different colorations is going to lay on top of this, and everywhere where it's white, this will show through. The texture will also show through, and that's what I love about how we've gone about doing this. I don't want a ton of texture, but I want a little texture. I like that really kind of mellowed in, sunk in kind of look. We want it flat enough that if you use it as a tray, as this is intended, or if you use it as a tray, the glasses won't wobble. So then you can go back over the top and just kind of flatten things. So we have a good random kind of amount of medium. And so we'll let this dry, and then I'll use my paints and I'll do the same thing on the other side, which I'll show you in just a moment. The next thing I'll want to do is I want to sand. This is got my cracks and my texture, it's all dry. I'll sand it just to knock down any irregular edges. Wipe the dust off in over a trash can. I'm going to take a spare piece of paper and I'm going to make my line for my box. I'm using a T-square. I want it straight. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make sure my line stays straight. Okay. The reason I'm doing this is I want to create a picture frame and put it kind of over this. This is going to be backwards, and so I need to be able to tell where I'm going to put the art that I want to be. I want the art where, I want the words where I want them, if that makes sense. So I'm going to make a little window, kind of a choppy, sloppy little window. Oops. And that'll tell me where my placement will be. I'm sure there's probably a better way to do this, but this is the best that I've got right now. Now what I'll do is I'll hold this up to the light and I'll be able to see where, if you can, let's see, I don't know if you can see through, you can't see the words through, but if you hold it up to light, you can see where the words are on there and how they lay out. So this has, oh, I really wish you could see this. Basically this is showing me this format right here. Okay, and so if I raise it up just a little bit, I'll get most of this word, and these bottom words right here. So that's kind of what I'm going for. Now I'm going to mark this on the back where I want it, and then I'll know where to lay it over here on this piece. Okay, the next thing that I've got just the top two corners of where I want my art to go, and it's going to end basically at that line. That's my big plan. So doing the same layout, I really do love this layout. So then we take our piece and we put, run medium, decoupage medium. The medium's really kind of a glue. They don't all act the same. So I'm going to choose my most interesting area. I guess I'm okay with this right here. I could mark it as well, but I think I'll just carry it across and spill it all over my mat. Put a nice coat of this on. Make sure you get it into your cracks and crevices. The ink is going to glom to this medium. This is, it has to be a toner-based ink. It can't be inkjet. There might be another process, and I don't know what it is, for inkjet image transferring, but this is toner-based or laser transfer. Okay, I think that's more than low enough. Alright, so it's just a nice even amount, and now I'm going to, in theory, get that up there, and I think I'll drop it down just a little bit. And I gotta get it straight. Okay, and you want to not seal the edges of the paper down. You don't want to put glue on top. Push from the inside going out. And you do kind of want to make sure that you're fairly straight. Everything's got to be in good contact. If you have any glue coming out over here, you sweep it away. And then you can use your brayer. If you get any medium on your brayer, you need to wipe it off before you continue. And okay. There we go. All right, the next step, we need to make sure we're thoroughly dry, and then we're going to squirt. Oh, we're going to sand first. We're going to take a rough sanding disc and just rough up our paper on the back side. And where I just did that squirting. That just makes it easier for the water to get in. Okay, and then we missed it. Get it kind of wet. And we're going to start just rubbing on it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get this pilled up paper, and the words are going to stay behind, and they'll be in the right direction. And so you just keep it wet, and you keep misting it. You want to make sure you're absolutely dry. And this is how you do an image transfer. So what you're doing is you're taking off all of the paper backing. And then what's really neat about it is your colors of your paint show through in between where the ink isn't solid. Okay. And then you can paint right on top. And this is a little bit of a, not a process. You could use a washcloth if you wanted to, you know, whatever you need to, whatever you want to do. It's a little bit exfoliating on the fingers. So if your fingers are real sensitive, then you'd use something else like a washcloth or something. But it goes pretty fast. Super simple, and if you hate lettering because your lines are not straight and all that kind of stuff, you can put letters on any kind of project that you want to just print them on a laser printer and print them out backwards. And do check out the website because we've got some pre-done ones in different sizes and colors, and you can just order them and we'll send you the pages. Alright, so this is the words that I've got, and I love the faded to see how the texture and the crackle and the different colors all come through. So the color on the paper is shining through, the color in the background is shining through, the texture is there, but it's a really nice, smooth, flat texture. It's awesome. Love it. Okay, so now I want to take, since I'm doing this piece, I'm just going to replicate my borders, and probably need gray. This is a triple threat Ghostwriter. It has a gray lead, a roller ball for tracing, and your white lead. I'm going to use gray today because I'm on this light color. And so that is 2 and, what is that, almost a half, so that's 2 3/4, no, 3/8. Okay, so we'll go 2 3/8 here. And then we'll just take our T-square, and we'll make our line. Okay, and then we'll measure the bottom line, which looks like it should be about same. It's a little bit under 2.5, but, oh, you know what? That's not a true statement. Okay, so, yep, not a true statement. Let's refigure this. That's 3/16, not. Okay. I think, oh boy. Huh, the bottom one is smaller than the top one. Okie dokie. Use the pattern. So the bottom one is like 2 1/4. Okay, we'll just go straight across. All right, now we'll base coat, and we'll go from there. All right, this is the funnest thing I've come across in a really long time. This is an image transfer. And what this means is this used to be printed on a piece of white paper, and then I had some base coat on the back of my cereal box, and I put DecoArt's Decoupage Medium on there, and I laid my butterfly cutout into it upside down, rubbed it on there, let it dry, rubbed off the paper, and all that remains is the ink. then I thought, well, oh my gosh, you know, would this work with a clock? So I took a really small clock with really busy stuff. And this is just my scrap. I was working on a leaf thing right there. And then see, all of the detail is perfect. All these little hash marks. This clock is only, how many? Maybe 3 inches around. I am so super excited. Okay, so then we did that, and I thought, well, great, that works. So then we took it, and I decided, like, this is a piece of collage paper. Okay, this is a collage paper. And I glued that onto here. And I thought, well, would it be better if I didn't have to match this cream color background all the time? All of my projects that I've been painting lately with collage papers, let me see if I can find, I've got a pile of stuff right here. Like, for example, this Butterfly Believe, I have to keeping my background color consistent with the paper because I layer over the paper. So I always have to use this like cream color, and printing wouldn't be so cool. So then what I did is I did it the other way. I put my paint and my texture, ignore the edges because that's where the paint's going to go, so I didn't worry about that. So I did my, my texture and my background and my crackle and all that, and then I put the paper on top of it. Now this paper was printed, and I can show you an edge here. It's printed with a little shading around the edge, and that's what you're seeing here that is accenting the background, but everywhere where it's white isn't ink. That's actually just blank paper and maybe little pixelated dots to make it shaded. So what you get here is you get these words with some shading layered over this color paint, and I can make it any color, just like this goes over black onto this color, and it's the same color as my background. Okay, so now I can paint on this. I can cut my words out. I can put this happy word here. I can take an Eiffel Tower. I can tear that out. It's got to be printed on a laser or a toner-based printer. If I want a black Eiffel Tower in the middle, I can glue that down, and I would never be able to replicate that with painting. It's just way too much detail for me anyway. Okay, so then what we did is we went through and I did a clock. I wanted to see if I could actually line up the clock. Now you'll notice that there's some fuzziness around here. And all of these were done in, I've done everything today, and it's been just a mad screaming dash through the studio trying to see all the different ways I could do things. So the crystalness is, pay attention to this and not this. But I could layer it and get the clock face to go directly on there and lined up, and the details stay. And so then what I discovered is if I have, once I get it to the layer that I like, now I base coated this cream, and then all you see here is that is the black image that is left, and I've rubbed all the paper off. Okay, and so you see a little bit of fuzz right here. I could still work, you see the fuzz right here. I'm going to squirt it with my bottle, and I could still work on that by just rubbing to take that off. I'm getting just a little bit more off of there. Okay, and then you just wipe that off, and it dries. But what I discovered in this quadrant right here, oops, sorry, in this quadrant right here, notice how crystal clear it is, and you don't see any of the fuzziness. That is just a coat of matte varnish, and that crystallizes everything and makes it, also it seals down your laser ink into the piece. So now I could paint back on top of this with roses or lilacs or lavender, whatever I want to paint on my clock. So then it was like, oh, maybe I can paint color clocks on top of this. So this is, and this isn't done in reverse. So one of the things that's key to understand is, like, for example, this clock, hello, I'm looking for 12. This clock was not done, oh, hello, yes, this clock was done in the reverse. You print it backwards, and let me see if I have this. So this is what this would have looked like to begin with, although a little bit smaller. My 1 o'clock is on the wrong side, okay? And so what that means is when I put my image down, I put it down this way and glue it down, and then I'm rubbing the paper up in the back. When I'm finished, the numbers will all be right. Okay, so anyway, but so this is after I put some varnish to clean it up, and now I can go on painting on it just like I want. If I wanted to make sure that maybe I wanted to crackle on top, I could crackle on top. I could put this on after I got done painting. I could have my painting be within it. I can do whatever I want with this, and it has many layers. Okay, so we go back to, there's our other sample. So our other sample, oh, right here. Our other sample was part of a bigger piece here, and it was on white, like this. And then I painted my cardboard into this creamy color, and then that's what it turns out like. So this is it on white, and then this is it once it's on cream. Now I can, once again, this was down and dirty, and just get it done and see what happens. I can just work this a little bit more. It's just a matter of squirting it with water and you're rubbing off the paper. It couldn't be easier. We did this a little bit. It's on our blog post with an iron and some other stuff, and I'll tell you, this is so much simpler. And this is just a matter of getting the right medium. Got to be the decoupage medium from DecoArt, and you are going to have the happiest results. Okay, so that is beautiful. Imagine never having to paint all of these little doodah lines again, and getting your border in a perfectly banded line, and now you can just paint your art in the middle of it. That is just so liberating to me. All right, so what I wanted to do today is just show you how to do it. And then I just go to we've got an image transfer section on our website, and we have all kinds of files that you can buy. We're going to mess around with doing them in colors, like these papers were in colors, so that you get that real creamy kind of pretty word colors. They'll be reversed already, so you get the paper printed just like this, and then you flip it over. You could cut it out, do whatever you want. And we have black and white images as well. They'll all be done in the reverse. The sizes will be on there. We've got a ton of clock things to do, but we are like, oh, going crazy. Okay, so the way you do this, super simple. There's like 5 steps or something like that. You're going to take your decoupage medium, and you're going to smoothly, I got a crease. I can tell you about everything not to do. I got a big bubble when I put my paper on here, and the medium, the transfer medium, formed like a channel. Now I can just, because this is paint right here, I can just go sand that off and just rebase it, and it's fine. And now I'm talking my stuff dry. So I'm going to put that on there smoothly. Okay, and then we put this paper right on over the edge. Now I haven't got it quite tip to tip. You anchor it in the middle. I'm doing quite a small thing, aren't I? And then you rub out. You don't want to put the paper sealed into it, otherwise you'll have a hard time removing the paper from the edge. So you rub out from the middle. And you notice that I clipped my paper kind of close to the edges. Okay, and I'll just rub that down, make sure I got contact everywhere where I want it. And I'm not going to be able to rub too much. I've clipped it quite close. Now for the bigger items, I've been using a brayer to roll that down, but because that won't fit in there, I'm just going to use my finger. Okay, now I have been cheating and using a blow dryer, and that's been working. The one thing that you have to do with this is it has to be 100% dry. So you can't shortcut this. You have to be perfectly dry. And I'll do the blow dryer on camera, which I never do because it's so loud. So if you have a loud TV, turn it down. And I'm just gonna doesn't seem to take a whole long time. You want to make sure you are very dry. And you let it cool off. Okay, and then you're going to use a scratchy. I've got these new heart-shaped sanding disc, which is kind of nice because it gives you the hard. It's attached to a hard base, and you're just going to sand on top of the paper just to roughen it up, wipe the dust off. You're going to need a misting bottle, and you're going to mist the top of it, and you can kind of see the paper softening already. And you're going to just rub the paper off. You can use a rag. You want to be gentle. Really, really, truly, I would let this dry longer than I'm doing. I wouldn't jump it like that because you don't want to waste your money and time. I can go downstairs and print another one. You know, that's, for me, it's a little bit different because I have access to it. If you're getting it shipped to you, you don't want. Okay, this does not work with inkjet printers, so please don't go running to your inkjet and trying it. It's got to be toner based. Okay, I'm going to dump this in the trash. Can you believe how easy this is? Think about words on your projects. Okay, think about all of the things in the world that you hate to base coat, and think about the fact that they can be done with, there you go. And then what I've been doing is allowing it to I work it kind of gently, and then I allow it to dry. Okay, and so I'll let this dry, and then I'll come back to it. Now what I did here, oops, little things everywhere. What I did here is I went and got my shader and started just kind of shading this little butterfly. That's like 1 inch tall. Can you imagine trying to base all of that little stuff? But wouldn't it be cute to be able to use a little butterfly in your projects that has all of that microscopic detail? Okay, and now I can go through and I can paint these things and do whatever I want with them. That's how simple it is. Okay, some things that I would do is I definitely would look at things to put over colors, because I think that's just amazing. Black is fine too, like that's your micro detail. Oh, you got to show you the CD. This is just messing around and stuff like this, but here is a CD. It's a trashed mess on the back. I've got a disc to make the hole the right size, and then I put a clock on there. I painted it green, I smushed a clock face on there, rubbed off all the paper, and that's what I've got. So now I'm ready to paint my project and make it be just a cute little freebie gift. We've got clockworks that fit into the CD holder. We've got clocks that are sized exactly to the CD size. So this would be an example of that. Now what I did to fit the clock, let's get an example here. What I did to fit the clock is I went with my scissors. I was worried, this is why I did clocks, to show you. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to line up the clock. That was my fear. So I got my scissors and I went on 4 sides as close as I could get to the line without going into the line. Okay. And we're going to have obviously projects with this kind of stuff in it, but right now I just wanted to get us started and get you excited and fired up. You've got to go look at that category, the image transfer category. Absolutely worth its weight in gold. Let's do it. Where do we need to go? Okay. And I've got some exciting other news. Okay, so then what I did, and what I wouldn't do again, what I didn't like about this, is I put all the medium in the middle here, but I really don't need it there because I don't need to worry about that paper being glued down right there. I don't need that circle. Okay, the other thing I did was I did cut a hole. This is for lining things up. So I cut my hole the right size. Okay, and then I cut that out kind of roughly. It doesn't matter if it's exact. I just needed to be able to tell if it was fairly even. You want the clock to line up right. Clocks to me are the hardest thing in the world to paint. I was chatting with another designer, and she was sharing with me that she had to like rest her hand for like 3 days after she finished one extremely busy clock. Okay, so what I would do is I would put my medium, okay, I would put my medium where the clock's going to be. So I might measure that and go, okay, I need my medium out and around this area. And then I would line it up, and then what I did was I lined up the middle, I'd lay it down and anchor it and make sure that my 4 sides are all lined up. And then you smooth out to the outer edge. Except for, in this case, it's going to be numbers are down. You got to be face down. Okay, so, and with clocks, you don't need to worry, and this one's off a little bit, there we go. With clocks, you don't need to worry about which way they are until you put the holder in. And our clocks have a holder on the back of them that does a little thing that you actually hang. This clock is flat. So you actually hang this clock by the holder, by the clockworks. Anyway, then you press this. I'm going at 1,000,000 miles a minute because I'm just so excited. You press this down, press it down, press it down, get all the glue stuck. And then you don't have to worry about peeling the glue out of these grooves down here. This was crazy. That was not a good situation. But it's still, once I finish working on the rest of the little bits here, it's going to be an awesome little piece for a little Zen clock. You can customize anything. You can put that black on top of all stuff. Some caveats. It does not work to use, printers don't print in white ink. So you can't do like gold letters on black. You can't do white letters on red or anything like that. That will not work. But you can do anything medium color, anything that dark will show on, that you want to use dark on, you can do that. You can do it for backgrounds, you can do it for lettering, you can do it for words, you can put word art on your walls at home. Okay, so this is where I want to get into the exciting part. We have books of words, and books of clock faces actually, and we're working at making one of the clock faces in reverse. But if you know how to use a computer, and you know how to print to make it a reverse, there are 50 clock faces in here that you can just resize into any size or width that you want to. There's a million kinds, okay, 50 different ones to choose from, and the good detail, little detail, you choose, okay? Then on top of that, we've got the clock face embellishments, which have all of the things and the words that go with. Okay, so you can figure out like what you want to put words on top. So I've got my clock here. Maybe I want to have a word here. I can choose one of these words, resize it, print it in reverse on my laser printer, and put it on there. If you don't have a laser printer, you can take this book or the disc that this on a thumb drive somewhere. There's discs. These come in little binder things for keeping your disc with. All the clock faces are on this, and you can put this into your computer and just resize it. Okay, so, but then it gets even better, but wait. So then, I've got all my books in here. All of our books of words, every one of them, can be used the same way. So maybe I want the word cognac to be on the side of a wine box or something like that. I can take and I can paint the stuff. Maybe I don't want to do all of that little squirrely stuff. I can take that, reverse it, print it on the laser, and then I can paint my whole project and then put that onto the piece. And any of these words can be used like that. So any book of words that we have can be used the same way as long as you use the laser printer. Okay, and then you can, and the sky's the limit. We've got every season covered. You know, there's express yourself. That's, you know, there is nothing going to stop you from using all these words in any way that you want. And then do check out the website. We'll be having things like new colored versions of the clocks and a whole bunch of different other things. This is just like, I can't even begin to wait to paint roses on the bottom of this little clock here. Not this clock, because that's obviously trash. But to take out all this work, that makes painting my clock so much faster. I hope that you're as excited about this as I am. The medium is and definitely get the matte DecoArt DecoPage medium, because this one, it doesn't have shine, which means you can paint over the top of it. You'll want matte varnish so that you can go matte over the top of your surface. You'll obviously want clocks. You know, there's we've got the clocks in all kinds of sizes, and the price is super cheap. And then from there, you know, whatever. It's just whatever you want to do with it. Christmas words, anything. All right, the very next thing that we want to do is we want to seal down our words so that we can play with our medium, with our paints and stuff on top of them. So I'm going to use DuraClear matte varnish that's going to seal everything under. Just go ahead and base coat on one quick coat, and that'll just make sure that any scrubbing and rubbing and things like that won't affect either our texture or our laser words. And we'll let this dry. And one thing that I noticed when I did this, because this has totally been an experiment that has gone absolutely crazy around here. I've gone from this to 12,000 clocks. This is a technique that will be staying in my repertoire. Anyway, this line right here is a straight line, and that's because that was the very edge of my paper, and I put, it stuck, the color stuck all the way across. Now we actually don't have a ridge because it's just the inks that are on here and not the paper. But I do like this kind of hodgely-podgely where I ripped over here from where I didn't have the medium all the way. And I think doing it in the future, I would go ahead and just kind of slip-slap my glue there and apply it just a little bit more randomly, just to not end up with harsh dark lines. Maybe I wanted to wash there or something like that. I think I'd be a little bit more careful in the future to make it be a little bit looser at the edge. So I'll let this dry. And in the meantime, what I found is I took out my, we're going to do leaves, and so I took out my dry rubbing brushes. This is an almost new one, but I don't know if you can see, there's a ton of paint in these brushes. This is how this goes. It's always the way it goes. This one right here is stained green, and I can only bend the bristles at the very tip. I can't even bend them. You should be able to flex this whole thing. The thing about these that's cool is that they're really, really, really sturdy, and so you can just rub and rub and rub, and that's great. But you should be able to at least bend them a little bit. So we're going to take our Winsor Newton brush cleaner and restorer, and I've taken a bottle cap off of one of my old paint bottles and put it on here to give myself a little bit more control. And then what you do with this is I put it in the basin. You just put your brushes right on in, and you'll notice that immediately I start getting green paint out of there. Okay, and then these are to scrub. It helps tease the paint out of the back end. And I need to use these brushes dry, so I should have washed these right after I got done the last time painting, but I never think of it until I'm getting ready to paint the new project. But I'll just go through and then just wash it in water when you're done. I'll go through while I have the medium out, and I will just clean all of these guys. Okay, and then I'll have all my brushes clean for this project. I printed out my design onto the see-through vellum, and look at how wonderfully see-through it is, and it's the right size and weight for your printers. I can't tell you how much I love not having to trace patterns. That is I want to kind of center this in the middle of this heart word that I've got here. And then I'll go ahead and transfer and trace. As I'm going through and painting projects, I'm taking out my labels. We've got labels available now for the tops of the paint bottles because I can't tell what superior quality gold color is from the top. And I put my paints all in a bin, or some of you have those racks where they go in sideways. Mostly we don't have them so that we can see the label right on the front. That's just for store purposes. So I'm looking for number 9, antique gold. And then what I'm doing is I'm putting a little swatch of paint on the tip as I open them up. That's why I'm doing them as I use them, so I'll have them shaken up and done. I'll get on there. They're fairly heavy and fairly big, and now I can tell that that's a gold paint, and it is antique gold, and I know what number it is. Perfect. And just on another aside, I have so much fun discovering things. So these are, this is a glass block that I am frosting, okay, and it has a hole in the bottom so that you can put lights and stuff in it. And then this can fit inside this so that you can actually feed a electrical plug out from the bottom and light it up. It's very cool. Okay, but as it was sitting here waiting for me to play around with it, I put my paints in it, and I found that it made a fantastic little paint caddy so that my paints aren't rolling around and getting knocked over. I can fit a whole project worth of paints right here, and I can see, because my lids are labeled, exactly what they are, and pull them out as I need them, and they're contained like a firewood in a way. And then one other thing I wanted to mention about the labels. The labels, we had these, we found these. Most of the small circle labels are things that people use for garage sales, and they're removable, which means they don't stick very well. We actually got these from another company, the specific size for the lids, and we got them because they are non-removable. So they're not going to peel off and reuse very easy, but they're not going to fall off either. Okay, I'm going to base coat my leaves. The antique gold is not a very good base coater, so I'm going to mix in some yellow ochre with it for my first coat and just give it a nice bright yellow color. I'll do my second coat in just the antique gold. I'm going to add a little bit of shading under my leaf. I went ahead and put a top coat of true ochre over for my final coat. I like the brightness a little better, and it separates it up from the background. I'm going to use my, this is one of the cool new brushes. It's a curved flat, and it is curved on one side and flat on the other, so it acts like an angle shader, a dagger striper, a flat, and a filbert. You can do a lot of different things with just one brush. It holds a great amount of water, and it seems to not wear out very much. That was really impressive because I did a number of projects when they first came out. I'm going to go ahead and shade next to my leaf. I'm going to turn my corner so I can go in and clean up. I want to just float on one side, almost like drop shadow. And a little bit, I got just a little bit of a sheen on here. So what I'll do is I'll grab my sanding disc and I'll just buff down my edges so that I get a little bit less of that sheen so my floats don't float off. You could do that before you actually start painting your leaf. Okay, so just go in. And this is going to give us just a little bit of lift away from there. Go back, add a little bit more. The thicker your shading, the more it looks like it's lifted up. Do you see how that just increased? And we'll shade sand. Just take care of all of it at one time. There we go. And you know, actually I'll go ahead and do my edges all the way out to my edges, because I'm about to glaze as well. So that just adds just that hair of tooth. Eye of newt. It sounds like a silly thing to say. Okay, we'll bring that around. Okay. That just lifts it up. I think we'll just stick on one side. We wouldn't have everything lifted up everywhere. Like that would be maybe the one. Okay. Okay, and I'll switch to a giant angle shader. It's a clearly amazing angle shader. And I'm going to float with the dark chocolate in my corners and edges. And I don't care about going over that line because I'm going to base coat over there. So it's nice to do this step before so you don't have to worry about being neat and tidy. And because we don't have paper stuck there, we don't have any ridges, which is fantastic. Get myself on camera. So the first time around, maybe I'll just do my edges, and then the second time around, I'll take time to kind of deepen them and round them out and stuff. So I'm using that pointy end of my brush to kind of scoop around. I'm not turning the back end, so it's not like a turn like that. It's a reach around kind of movement. And it can be a little bit dry. It doesn't have to be a real super wet float. You can decide how much intensity you have. I think I just turned that thing all the way around. Now, two things can happen here. Because you have varnish on your leaf project, what can happen is you can easily wipe off any mistakes that you have. The other thing that can happen is if you're too rough on an area and you don't allow it to dry, you can wipe off what you've just done. So you do want to give it a little bit of extra time to dry and cure. Now the next thing I want to do is put my stems on with my Ghostwriter. This is a triple threat Ghostwriter. It has a gray lead, a roller ball that is for tracing, and a white lead. It's all on board, and there's even an eraser tucked here in the back. And it's the most versatile, favoriteest tool that I wouldn't do without. Okay, so leaves have those great veins. That is what makes the color kind of pop. So I'm going to sketch these on because I don't want to just go wild and crazy. I want to get just the right amount, because we're going to try a different technique. I did a little experiment. Get enough veining on there that makes you happy. Okay, don't want it too crazy. But we're going to use our, going to get out texture glass. Wow, it's kind of cold cream looking. Use a palette knife. Okay, I'll scoop out some texture glass. You can use this to do so many techniques. It's a wonderful product. It is, you can put it on really thin, and that's how we're going to use ours today. We're going to use it really thin, really not a heavy consistency. I'm thinning it with a little bit of water just to make it be movable, and I'm using my Mighty Fine liner, and I'm kind of loading it all the way up to the ferrule. And don't worry about your liner brush, because you can always wash it with your brush cleaner in your store. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a fairly heavy application of this where my leaves are, where my veins are, sorry. I'm just going to pick it up on an ongoing basis, and I'm going to make those really neat, delicate veins using the texture glass. It's going to dry crystal clear. And I can have some thick, some thin. Don't worry about making them be really smooth, because this technique, what we're going to do is, they do need to be heavier at the back. Make sure that you've got weight at the back and they get finer at the tips. So I get a little bit heavy right there. What we're going to do though is we're going to dry rub right over the top of this, and the paint doesn't stick to the texture glass. So we're going to kind of make a little relief, and then our gold color, which is underneath this, will shine through, and it'll be like we lined it all, but we won't have to worry about base coating it. It's kind of a different way to do this. Okay, I'll get that going. Now the Mighty Fine liner is a brush that we had designed for us because it has the right kind of bristles for spring and bounce and all that kind of stuff. And then we made them so that the length of the brush is perfect for most female artists' hands. If you don't have long fingers, you can't use long liners, or at least if you don't use an acrylic bridge or something like that. So come in there, and you want it kind of heavy, so if you're getting flat, like I just did a big flat section, don't want that. Make sure you're definitely lifting off at the end. I've got to get some more water in my texture glass because I ran out of that puddle. If you get it too thin, you'll know it, because of course then you won't be able to make little piles. And every now and again, wipe off your brush and reload it, because then it'll just kind of get thicker and thicker and thicker if you have a bunch of medium in the back of your brush. Okay, and we'll take some of it and come down the tail of that. All right. We'll let that dry completely. In the meantime, I can probably do a little more shading, but I think I'm going to let that dry too and take a little break. All right, my gel is dry. I'm going to do a little more shading around my border. Take a little bit more time with it. You kind of build it up a little bit when you're doing your shading around the borders. Okay, so I want to kind of create a good deep kind of look. I don't want it stripy, and I want to draw that in. See what's so fun about having the paint be like with the letters, like it's not paper there, it's, oh, this is just so exciting. So exciting. Okay, we'll come over here and we'll get this edge here done. Make sure you do go to your edge, otherwise you'll have a little like white line there, and that's unappealing. Okay, we'll get it all kind of sunk down, and then we'll deepen it. And you know, instead of rinsing your brush out every time you reload paint, do you know that you can just dip your brush into water? I'll show you. It's one of my favorite shortcut tricks. Okay, I'll bring that in. I love using the texture in the background because that grabs, you know, things, and it gives that kind of irregular look. Very pretty. Okay, so I've got my water basin. Okay, and it's a mess, so we'll ignore that part. But instead, I've got my brush loaded, right? And so I've got the dark, and I've got a good float going on where I've got a fairly clean edge. Okay, and then what you can do before you're going to load more paint, and I'm a little bit dry there, I can just dip straight into that, and then I go straight to my paper towel, and I blot it, and let the water kind of dry out, and then I can dip into my color, which is kind of drying, and I can reblend. Okay, so now I might blot just a little bit more, but I don't have to worry about washing my brush every time. I can just add more water. And then one of my favorite tricks is to take your misting bottle on your waxy palette, or not waxy, this is actually wax-free, but on this slippery palette, and when you hold it over one area, the little water droplets will grow. And so then what you can do when your brush is thirsty, you can take the clean side and you can just slurp up a couple of drops, and that adds just enough water to your brush so that you can continue painting. Okay, I'm going to begin my highlighting process first. I want to make my yellow just a little bit brighter, and I'm going to use a dry paper towel, a dry brush, and I'm going to use dry paint, meaning I haven't added water. I'm going to rub off, okay, so I'm going to dip my paintbrush in the paint and rub it off onto my dry paper towel. Then what I will do is I will decide where I want some highlights and colors and things like that, and I will just kind of scumble over the top of my stuff here just to kind of brighten a couple of areas. And you know, I think my paint might need to be shaken a little bit more because it's not really doing a very good job of showing. You can take a stainless steel BB and drop it into your paint bottles to make shaking your paint easier. Okay, and I'll just take that along some of the areas. Okay, got it nice and bright. All right, we're going to start on our greens, and I'm going to use Hauser green medium. Dry it all off, and I think we'll make this top side a green leaf, and we'll get it as close as we can without going over our edge. And we'll just rub the colors on. And see what's happening is it's making a resist where I put that plastic. We don't want to walk it all over everywhere, and we want it to fade out. So as it comes into the center area, maybe you'll fade it out. All right, and then as it dries, you continue to add just a little bit more shading to deepen it. And you want to let it fade out. Have it kind of sneak into other areas. Maybe we can have a little touch of it over here and a little touch up here. Okay, and then we'll go into, I'm going to switch to a different brush. Now we want to get our reds going. You're going to work in, oh, I guess I should have probably used my olive green, which is why I feel like I'm missing something. That's why. Start with your lightest color when you're doing this, that way you get a graduation. And so now I've not started with my lightest color, and I'm going to have to fake it. So I'll come out here and I'll lightest color around the outer edges, which is where it would normally be. You go through a lot of paper towels this way, but you can do it with your eyes closed. So now as you're going across this, and once it dries, if you've gotten too much color on this, hit it with the blow dryer, and then take your Q-tip, which is a really super ultra pointy little Q-tip. Just spit on it and then clean off your lines. And what's neat about it is because you've got a little bit of raised texture, that will stay looking like it's almost like a 3D leaf. And we've already got a little bit of a trompe-l'oeil kind of going with our shadowing to give it that raised thing. So that will actually encourage the viewer to feel like they are seeing something that is lifting up off the piece. Okay, so then I'm not going to get too much with my green, but I do want to go ahead and float now up next to my edge. So I'm going to use the curved flat because I'm going to be going into a lot of really crispy, edgy areas. And I want it to turn out to be really nice floats. So I'm going to go ahead and float right next to my edge. Okay, and then I'll leave the float, not worrying about touching that, and I'll go in with my smaller little rubbing brushes, and then I'll rub the finer closer to the edge detail to connect the dry rubbing with the float. That's how you get up to the edge without messing up your whole border. Okay, and we won't do it everywhere. We'll do it in the strong areas, if that makes sense. Like as we're getting down over here, maybe we'll let that fade out to that yellow. And then I can come and I could walk it out a little bit if I wanted to. I don't want to get a big liney line thing going, so be careful of that. But isn't that looks like a little leaf that's fading into the yellows and stuff. Gonna say, I was thinking about products today as I was cleaning my brushes and things like that, and there are 3 things I would never ever do without as far as in decorative painting. One of them is this water bucket with the 3 basins. I can't believe I even ever thought that was a bad idea. It is the best thing. The brush cleaner I showed you, and then there's one other, the Ghost Writer. I don't think, if I was on a desert island, those would be the things I would absolutely own. Couldn't do without them. They just do so many jobs. Okay, so now I'm going to lay my brush over here. I'm not going to worry about it drying out because I have my super brush cleaner. So as long as I know I have my brush cleaner, I can abuse this brush a little bit. I'm going to lay it down because I want to switch colors, but I might want to go back to that one. And since you can't use these brushes while they're wet, I can't wash it. Now what I can do, I'll show you a little trick. You can take a little bit of, where's my, it's the hand sanitizer. And I can't find it, so I'll just tell you about it. You can take your hand sanitizer and you can put a little bit on your palette. And then if I need to switch from a color like green to like a blue or something, I can just use the hand sanitizer, and the alcohol in it dries up really quickly, so it will dry quicker. But I can't find it, so we won't use that. Alright, I'm going to start with Peaches and Cream because that's the lightest color. Look at my little label. I'm so excited about that. Oh, my persimmon has not got its color chip yet. These are the things that make me happy. We just won't talk about how silly that sounds. Okay, so I'm going to go into the Peaches and Cream. And I'm going to decide that my bottom area is going to be where I really want to have that orangier color. I'll drag that out, staying out of that green area. Give it a little kiss up here at the top. Now I'll go into Persimmon. And we'll make those colors go there. Bring it around. We don't want to make the yellow of the leaf go away. That's going to be our kind of, our main color, kind of. And repeat. Bring it as close as you can without going overboard. Bring that up into that area. Maybe a little kiss over here. Ooh, that was not a kiss. That was slobbering. Okay, and so now we've got a little balance, maybe a little bit of red up here and a little bit over here. Maybe a little bit there. And then we carry that. Isn't that pretty? Too much fun. Okay, and now we will, I think, try to think of what color is next. So now it's Georgia clay. So much easier, the paints that I have that are actually labeled, I don't have them all labeled yet, but I can look at this little rack that I have here and just pull out the right one instead of, you know, knocking all the bottles over and all that kind of stuff. I'm getting out Georgia clay, which didn't have a label on it, which is why I didn't know which one I was reaching for. And I do this just dirty brush because the colors will all meld then. And then we'll go over here and we'll deepen some of the areas. Okay, give it a little kiss of that color up there. Okay, it's getting a little bit too deep, so I want to wipe off as much as I can and then just dust. No pressure. While we have these brushes dirty, we can go into our corners and we can go ahead and diffuse some colors back here, just creating a deeper layer. Okay, and you can do the same with the green. Knew we'd need this brush again. A lot of paint left in there, and that just created just a soft little glazing. Just gives it a little bit more interest. Okay, and we could do a final, if I knew what color this was, heritage brick. Do a little bit of a kiss of a heritage brick. And that's going to be very, very mild. I don't want it to get out of control. Get the weight in the middle of where that fades, okay? Now we'll use our float. And I think we'll float with the Georgia clay. I want this to be fairly lighter application. I don't want a sheer application. Okay, and that is a little bit strong right there on the edge, but we'll work on that. I'll give this just softer. I'm just leading with the back end, hoping for soft effects. That's better. And then maybe right over here on this edge we can have just a little bit of that sneaking in. And pretty soon I'll have a whole orange leaf with all of this sneaking in. Yeah, I think that's getting pretty though. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of soft black and a real dry float, and I want to just tuck that in, real dry skinny float, which I did not make. Just tuck that in and increase a little bit of the deepest shading. And it just gives us that really raised up look. And we're going to need to pull some of the shading down from this stem. Oh, and then while I've got the color out, let's just do a little bit of a kind of a skip float of the Georgia clay. Raw. Softer. I've got some of the texture gloss on there. So it's going to stick in some places and not stick in others, which was kind of my plan. Give it a little bit of a crisp edge shading. And then that'll leave the highlight relief in the middle, which will make it look like it is more raised, plus it has texture gloss so that It really makes it look more raised. We'll use the dark chocolate. And we will shade. I'm on the last paper of my palette, and there's no weight to it. Okay, so I'll shade right along there. Okay. And then maybe we'll give it a little bit of a shadow here in the corner. And a little bit more with the soft black. Okay. Now we'll switch back to our big angle shader. And we'll go with the toe into the soft black. And we will increase the shading in these corners. Okay, I'm liking it. Okay, the next thing I want to do is get the paint off of, there it goes, off of my veins. Just a little kind of pressured scrubbing. I wonder if we could use a sanding disc. This little heart-shaped little sander. Nope, scratching through my leaf. That didn't work. Okay, back to scrubbing. I don't want it off of everything. I just want it off of some. See how cool that looks? And then that gives us that mottled kind of raised leaf kind of effect. If you want to make a couple that are maybe that have just a few more finer things, you could just line them on. But I think the idea, if you could see it, I don't know if you can tell, just having that little bit of texture difference, a little bit of shine, a little bit of something else, it really looks really cool. It looks real 3D. Okay, so I think we can call this area basically done. We need to do some spattering. That's always the fallback to the number 1/2 inch. This is a brush that is cut like an oval glaze as well. It's shaved in both directions, and then it's cut like a rake. So it does, I had to search, somebody took my brush, had to search high and low for a new spattering brush, and this is the one that I found that was the best. And now I can put these brushes into my water to be washed. And I'm going to take my paper, or whatever I have laying about, and I'm going to mask my areas. Okay, I don't need to mask everything, just kind of mask. Just scrap paper is fine. Now we want to do the dark red in the red areas. I'm going to stand up for this. There's the palette knife. I'm going to use, oh, we didn't get into Evergreen yet. I'm going to pull Evergreen out, but I'll dry rub it after I spatter. Maybe we don't need any dark Evergreen on there. Maybe just having some spatters will be fine. Okay, and then maybe that's it. So let's take a look and see what we have. Yeah, pretty. Okay, I like it. I think we could spatter around here, but I'll have to wait until my leaf is dry so I can mask it. And we'll spatter some of those darks and stuff back here. In the meantime, let's go ahead and tape. I'm going to put a coat of, it occurred to me that I can do glazing medium instead of matte varnish. So that would be a really good idea. Oops. And so as soon as I'm dry, I'm going to put a coat of glazing medium and dry it over here. In the meantime, I'll tape and base coat and tape and base coat. All right, to do the bottom, I'm going to use, I've got my tape on there, I'm going to use an angle stippler. I'm going to use an angle stippler in a minute. I'm going to use an ink sweeper, and I'm going to pounce on this line right on top of that line, because what that does is it allows no paint to seep under, because I'm going straight up and down and instead of brushing towards it. And then while I've got it dirty, I'll just go ahead and I can just wipe on the base coat for here. I'll allow that to dry, and then we'll repeat it and then do our faux finish. I can hit that with a blow dryer. Okay, and we'll repeat with Heritage Brick. I like having the crackle and the texture all underneath all these areas. It gives a nice uniform, ununiform look, if that makes any sense at all. And then I just plunk those ink sweepers in the back of my, in the back pocket of my water bucket. Okay, I'm going to open up my angle stippler by putting it in water and then pouncing it hard. Oops, I'm making my brushes all fall down. And then I'm going to pick up dark chocolate, and I'm going to take dark chocolate and I'm going to stipple into this color while it's wet. And I'm going to turn it this way and that way. Oops. Okay, really glom it on kinda, and then I'm going to go into the pink, the sherbet color. Now this one's going to be trickier. I'm going to put this up the middle, and it's ultimately going to just be a light area that is up the middle. It's like a highlight for the center. It doesn't need to really show. I'll wipe out my brush, pick up some soft black and some brown. And kind of, I'm going to build a little highlighty area, shady area right there. And just stipple away. Until we get it to a color that we like. And I've got it very wet. I think I want a little bit more soft black. Deeper, richer, darker. Maybe a little bit more middle mixing. It's all mixing together. And you do something like this, so the lights will stay where the lights are, the darks will stay where the darks are, but then you get a kind of a mottled mix as well. Okay, and I will peel the tape and hit the blow dryers. All right, we are going to add Evergreen. I decided it is needed, so I'll find one of my torn up paper towels. And I'm going to use a small brush. And rub a lot. Some colors are a lot more transparent than other colors. And what I'm wanting is for my leaf where it's not shaded on this side, I'm wanting the colors to draw it away from the edge, because I was thinking that it was really just kind of fading into the background on that one side. So I just want to make the contrast between my background and my leaf a little bit stronger. Okay, and now that's stronger. Now we'll give it a little bit more strength over here. Colors can be, with as dark as this is down here, I can really afford a little bit of darkness up here. Okay, I think that makes me happier. Balances out that red and everything. Oops. My paint is still rather wet over here. I've got to decide on the color for over here. And that one has been messing with my brains because, like, I could do it in a blue, but that doesn't really go, so we won't do that. I could do it in a green. And, you know, that's not bad, is it? It's not as bright as it could be, I don't think. I think that's... Can't decide. And then I thought about doing it in a brighter green. I'm going to play around with that, maybe a blue. I'll keep messing with it and see if I can figure it out. Alright, I've got my tape on here. I've decided on celery green. It looked good with this orange project, so why not have it be the same for this one? Straight up and down. Bouncing, bouncing. And we'll just walk it away here. Allow it to dry, do another coat. Alright, as I'm getting ready to do my image transfer word, I want to make sure that when I cut the word out that I'm making a very straight line, because if I don't make a very straight line, then I am going to not know if my word is straight when I put it on the project. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take a marker. Now I've lined it up on the second little 1/4 inch thing here, all the way across so that I know it's straight. But I want to cut the paper very close. So I'm going to make a line there, and that's the only line that I need to worry about. I don't need to have the rest of it be straight. And because I don't want to spend the rest of my life peeling paper, I'm going to go ahead and just cut it nice and close to the lines. It's not, you know, an exact science or anything, but I just don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I've done it in a really dark brown color. Okay, and then I'm going to cut across using a bigger scissor my line. If you had some kind of straight ruler-y type thing, cutting device, that would be fine too. Okay, now I can lay, and I'll take my T-square, which is over here, and my triple thread. And you got to put the things backwards, don't forget. And I want this to be centered-ish. And I do a fairly good job of eyeballing, but I always want to just make sure. So we'll say that that's about where I want it. Yep, come on. And we'll switch to our white. Give us a little line. And then when I place this on there, what I'll do is I'll hit that on the line. Now I got to remember my letters are a little above that. Is that going to bug me? I think it might. Let's drop that line closer down. Because, yeah, I was thinking that's the whole. I was doing it that way. Yeah, that'd be about right. Okay. So we'll just repeat the process. Which I'm missing a bottle. There it is. Missing a bottle of medium. Okay, so we've got our decoupage medium, and we are going to put our medium smoothly along the line. I haven't played around yet with how much is enough, if more is better or less is better. So far, everything that I've done has worked pretty uniformly, so it doesn't seem like it does matter. I'll bring it up a little higher than I need to. Alright, now we'll lay this on here. On the line here. Okay. And then we smooth it out. Remember, we don't want to embed the paper in it. So we'll brush away and wipe your glue off your fingers. And then we let that dry. And you could get rid of any of your extra glue as you needed to. I'm always more of a fan of cleaning up. While we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to go ahead and do our leafing medium. Let me see if I can find all that stuff. And I've got my brass powders. They come in little sample sizes or in 1 ounce sizes. I'm going to add some gloss varnish. Gloss is going to make it the shiniest and the most looking like metal. And I'll mix it together. You can mix this medium into any medium. You can mix the metal medium in any medium. And I'm making a big mess. You can make it as sheer as you want and as base coaty as you want. So like, I love that I don't have to re-base coat over and over again over gold. Wipe off your palette knife, and we're going to get ready to paint. So we're going to tape our different sections. We're going to tape our lines and stuff like that, so we'll just go through. And I've got little double lines. I'm going to tape so that I definitely go over where my paint is by hair, by a little smidge. I'm going to tape on my paper, so I want to be careful of that. Okay, so we'll just make nice little thin lines. It's going to use gold leaf, and then I thought, you know, the powders are so easy. Alright, I've got my ink sweeper back out. How many times today have I used this? And we'll just go boom, 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 boom. Okay, I'll lay that aside and peel the tape. Look at how beautiful. And then we'll just do that with the rest of our gold lines. Alright, so now we're going to remove our paper. We're going to take our little sanding disc that's got real hard sandpaper and attached to this little firm backing. And we'll rough that up a little bit. You can do it without this step, but I just find, ooh, that's still a little bit warm. I blow dried it. can see it instantly changing colors and peeling off the paper. Okay, and you just peel it off. And you just keep rubbing it and squirting it. Until you get it all cleaned up. And then this stuff you just throw in the trash. Okay, so I've got a coat of glaze on my Word. When I have, let's use a little pointer here, when I have these high points and low points on texture, then the medium didn't connect with my ink, and so I have a couple of voids in there. Two things I can do with that. Number one, I probably would leave it because I think it would add to the kind of the charm of a little bit like rustic, sanded off kind of thing. And it corresponds beautifully with, of course, the texture of the piece. The other thing that you could do is go into a color that matches, and you could just zip in that little bit of missing color, and then Bob's your uncle, you're going to be great. Okay, so if you have anything like that. And then when you get to a point where things look just slightly fuzzy and you feel like, okay, when's enough? How can I tell? If it wets and it disappears, then you're good to put a coat of varnish on, and then that's the level where you're going to, the varnish, I guess, maybe you know how when you rub on your skin and you get those like white scratchy marks if your skin is dry? Same thing happens on here. If we're rubbing on our piece, then what can happen is, you leave like almost like it looks a little dusty. So if it's wet and it looks clean, then when you put your varnish on, it's going to look clean. Okay, on that note, I've got to let that dry and I've got to let this dry, but in the meantime, I could go ahead and mark my lines and I could put my stamp on there. Okay, so I know I'm going to center my stamp in the middle. And we're going to use just flattened. I'm going to use my little stamp set here, the little passport stamp, which I love. I've got my other stamp all made, and I've tested it, and you can see where my high and my low points are. And I guess I could go ahead and make my stamp on here. Okay, let's give it a shot. Here we go. I'm going to flatten that paint out, really flat, really flat. And then I'm going to do a little test. Okay, that looks about right. A little bit too much, I think. So then we'll lay it on here and see how we do. And we'll repeat. And then we'll repeat. Awesome. Look at that. Love it. Love. It looks old world and aged and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I can add some little strokes and scrolls if I want to. Okay, so I've got this. You know what I've done is I've done this in a reverse kind of way that is not the same as my original thought. So that's going to like, oh, wait a minute, what are we doing here? I think I got dyslexic is what I think happened. And, you know, I don't know that I want to add any scrolls. Okay, we'll leave that and I'll antique it and see what I think then. Okay, I'm trying something different. I want to tape this line. I've just painted this line. And I want to tape my next line, but I don't want to remove that line. So I'm putting a mask down with my paper. And now my tape will be sticking to my piece, but not to my Pour Fresh paint. I think this might work. Okay, and drum roll. Yay! Perfect. Love that for a new tip and trick. Okay, I got some finishing touches to go here. We are going to use our big giant angle shader. We are going to shade with our brown color, with our dark chocolate brown color. can find a spot on my palette, we will shade. Go around the edges. And whoops, let's create an edged kind of patina. Oh, and my paint is fresh. Hello, go right through the fresh paint. You go ahead. So what do? I'm going to go right next to it with my paper towel. And I'm going to use my highly underrated tool called a blow dryer and dry that gold paint. Alright, I think we're dry now. Hopefully. Just go over here. Give some shades. Round it out, and then we're going to also round those corners out. We'll go into the soft black. I shaded a little bit on my scrolls. I figured out what I did them upside down. So in the future, I would pay a little bit more attention to that. We need to go into our corners here and give us, wow, not that strong, some nice serious corners. Okay, and that just kind of sinks everybody down in there nicely. You could skip along and put some here and there. I'm going to do the same thing up here when it dries, and we can also shade over here. If my gold is a little bit gold, I can just give it a little bit of a coat of the brown over the top of it. It's a little glimmery down there. I want it there, but I don't want it there that much. Okay, so that warms it down, sinks it in. We'll repeat over here with the same, with the soft black in the corners. Let me hit the blow dryer. Okay, that's dry now, and now I can go over and just warm up the little corners. Soft black there in the corners. Okay, and we'll use our spatter brush and give it a couple of spatters with soft black. Big spatters. I've done more wiping off on this project than I have done in a long time. So we'll blot those big spatters. Looks like freckles. Okay. And we'll do some smaller ones, and then we'll do the corners. Okay. And I think a couple coats of DuraClear exterior varnish, because it's a tray, but remember that it's also a piece of artwork that you can hang on your walls. You know, if you ignore my painting mess, when you look at these in these beautiful scroll hangers, and then you can take this one out and put the spring one for the butterflies in when you're not using it for your tray, then you've got, you know, wall art and you've got tray inserts. You can paint the backs and the fronts so that you can double up, and it's a super affordable and super versatile project.